Hi, welcome to the channel where we provide an alternative view to the common narrative. Well, usually we talk about world events and world political, whatever you want to see it, events. But today I would like to talk about South Africa, the place that I'm living in and have been living in since the last, say, 55 years. And yes, a lot have happened since those years. So as you know probably, South Africa was an apartheid government until about 1994. And in 1994, before 1994, white and there was racial segregation, and we called it apartheid. But racial segregation is not something new. It happens everywhere, especially also in America. We had many examples about that. We had big figures like a lot of not Malcolm X. Well, there were some big American activists and so on. But did they get any far away? No, they didn't get much. But in South Africa, in 1994, or 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from prison unconditionally. And in 1994, we had the transition from a apartheid government to a more so-called democratic dispensation. And unfortunately, from there on, it was only a way downwards. So why I'm actually doing this video is because my wife watched some YouTube videos about a television series that was played off in the years of apartheid. And it was a hospital series, and the hospital was clean, functional. The nurses were well-dressed, well-versed, friendly. Basically everything worked. And then thought about comparing it today. Today, none of our public hospitals work. They are a disgrace to under any norm. You know, feces are lying everywhere. People are lying on the ground and not on beds. Your patients are not cared for by the staff, but by their families. Beds are scarce. Bedding itself is scarce. Medicine is scarce. Treatment is scarce. It's a no-no. Even the staff is incompetent. I will explain to you. Like I said, I have a business. And my foreman's business, my foreman had a kid who on a Friday night overturned hot coffee onto herself. She was about 2 years old, and that created some burns, and they rushed her to hospital. Now that kid was still breastfeeding. In any case, they went to the hospital, and there was a black doctor, and can't remember if it was a Cuban or what. But in any case, the doctor investigated and said, no, she doesn't need to stay in the hospital. Gave her a couple of panadas and sent them home. So the whole weekend, my foreman suffered, or this kid suffered. And on Monday morning, they brought the kid back. And then there was a white doctor. And the white doctor said, but how could the weekend doctor send this kid back? The child must be immediately taken or into the hospital and treated. In any case, so it went on and on and on, and then there was strict security, and they were not always allowed to see their child. The mother was still breastfeeding, but that didn't matter. She was not allowed in the ward in order to breastfeed the kid. And the ultimate case was that by Friday, the kid is dead from dehydration. The father and mother were not allowed to see them during the week. The personnel didn't provide this child of any fluids, and she physically died of dehydration. Nobody looked after it, and they didn't care. And this is not the only case. There are millions of cases. There is more than 4 billion. Well, the last time I checked, and that was a couple of years back, there were claims of more than 4 billion rands of claims for neglect against the hospital. So while we're watching also the South African Army and so on, and how proud we were, and it was a functioning, respected military in the world. We had some significant advanced weapons which were on par to anything else, and we were a bushfighting force. All white males had to do military service as a conscript, me as well. And basically everything worked. Now, just as a short history, apartheid wasn't really introduced by the whites per se. It was already, we were a British colony. And all the times the British actually instigated the blacks against the Afrikaans people and so on. But when they didn't come in power and so on, they decided to segregate the development of these nations. And it went through years, and there were some bad things that were happening. I cannot deny that. But so everywhere else it was happening, even America, even in Europe, Europe countries that were in Africa did very similar things of suppressing the local population and stuff like that. So it's not that South Africa was a unique country in that respect. In any case, the French in Algeria and so on and so forth, and British in India and so on. But in any case, we did occupy or semi-annex or control Southwest Asia, Africa, so it's now Namibia. We did fight a bush war against the rebels that didn't accept that, which is all natural. That was called SWAPO. But there was a huge communist influence in Angola, and America had a lot of oil interests in Angola, and the CIA was significantly involved in Angola. And they didn't support the current government, which was socialistic and supported by Russia and so on, and the Cubans by indirect proxy. And then the CIA actually asked the South African government to take over and basically try to control Angola and support the opposition, which was Savimbi, Joshua Savimbi. And that's how we as South Africans got involved in the real Bush War, which was against the Cubans and the Angolan army. And we had several operations of that. And in the last operation, actually 2 of my platoon members, we split up after our training, but they went to the Parabats, and they did go to the Bush War. They were involved in that. And 2 of them were actually killed in a mortar attack of a group of 15. So, and they were young guys. They were just finished school and so on. And was, nice guys. Seriously, this is not a joke. They were really, really nice guys. But in any case, they lost their lives in the last operation. So, when the Soviet Union collapsed, the Soviet Union influence in Angola collapsed. Before that actually happens, the Americans always protected the apartheid regime and semi-supported the ANC's claim, but they suppressed that aid to the ANC, and basically they protected South Africa against any international pressure to make it democratic. However, when the Soviet Union collapsed, the threat in Angola dissipated. America wasn't interested anymore, and therefore they needed to protect South Africa anymore, and that made the collapse of South Africa also inevitable. And that also led to the release of Nelson Mandela by, in any case. So that made it possible, but which is also fine. Then they had a scam referendum where the answers were basically pre-selected. You couldn't really vote for anything. And, we had a national election. At this stage, there was, I was one of them. I don't believe that that the Africans who had the majority would be able to manage this country. And the most obvious evidence was you just have to look north to Africa. What African country was managed properly and correctly? They were all corrupt and incapable of managing any country. So for me, there was only one way for South Africa, and it was downhill. There were, I wasn't militant, so that's not what I meant, but there were some militant groups under the command of General Viljoen, who were prepared to start a civil war. But the day before the elections, they convinced him to stand down, and that's why it's never happened, but it could have happened any time. So there were people already, and South African soldiers were of high quality because we all were good trained. We had control over all the armaments and military equipment, and we were all, even if we were not part, we were all trained as a reservist. So we could have been called up, and that would have been a very, very bad decision. So luckily that didn't happen. But at the end of the day, I didn't believe in the New South Africa, and all the liberal people, oh yes, democracy, that's the right thing to do, and so on. At that stage, there was an assassination of Chris Hani by, what's his name? I forgot the other name again. Janusz Wallus, who actually shot him, and another Afrikaner guy. And the funny thing is actually that by that time we have established about, I think, 7 or 9 Bantustans in South Africa. And these Bantustans were given full autonomy over those regions. They had their own government. And in an interview with the one culprit of this assassination, he specifically stated that at that stage in 1994, these Bantustans were working actually all right. They were self-sufficient, and they were starting to develop and even have export surplus, except for one, and that was in Eastern Cape. So the whole policy of Bantustan and separate development idea of the National Party was still working, and the people could work in South Africa, so that wasn't the problem. They didn't have all the pass systems at that stage anymore. So, but one of the reasons why South Africa collapsed apparently was, the South African economy is in its downturn, and the government's in debt. But I looked it up. At that stage, our debt to GDP was 20%, which is not really a factor. So that was all a lie. In any case, so basically we lost the support of the Americans, and that was more important than anything else. And that's why it was took over, the ANC took over. And for the last, let me see, 36 years, the ANC absolutely destroyed this country. It's unbelievable. And they were given a country that was fully functioning. The roads were well maintained, water systems were well maintained, electricity supply was well maintained. We had more than 700 government institutions that all worked well. Our arms industry was world class. Our military was world class. Post office, everything, 100% working. Train services running, no problem. So everything was well running. It was a smooth running country that they observed, that they inherited from the white supremacy government. Well, naturally, all the liberal people, they were fighting for democracy and anti-apartheid and so on. They were all ecstatic when the elections were held and so on. And then a couple of years later, they all were disappointed because they realized what we have been telling them all the time was happening, and that was the destruction of the South Africans, South Africa as a country. And there was reverse apartheid. Whites were prevented from obtaining certain employment. They were fired from the positions in order to make place for black employees and so on. But at the end of the day, the blacks that were put in those positions were not capable or trained to do that type of work. So they were underqualified. So naturally, all these institutions failed. The government institution itself was increased by a size of 3. And everybody was doing nothing and earning big money. And then there was the corruption, and then there was nepotism, they call it. I think that's the right word for English. When family arranged work inside government positions for their family, which are not qualified. I think that's called nepotism. But in any case. So, South Africa is gone. And I don't have much faith that it will be able to recover. Except that for some or other reason, a miracle happens and South Africa grabs the opportunity that the BRICS Union or the BRICS organization presents them to them. But before, to finish off and so on, I thought I'll show you a small, let's call it, Twitter post. I will try to read it. That was done by a black guy and so on. And he said, and we always talked about what did the ANC do for South Africa? What did they achieve? And this guy is a black guy and he actually says what it achieved. So I see Cyril said we must praise the ANC for what they delivered since 1994. Well, the list is endless. The rand-dollar exchange rate from 3.65 changed to 19 rand for a dollar since 94. Petrol prices went up from 2.65 per litre to 24 rand plus a litre. South African economic growth down from 4.5% in then rand dollar terms to 0.3% in now's rand terms. They lost Eskom, and that was a big government steel mill. Transnet, Spoornet, Portnet, SABC, Post Office, SAA, Eskom, since 1994. They lost 44,000 kilometers of roads. They've increased our crime levels to exceed both Mexico and Colombia on the mean index since 94. Now that must be an achievement. They built 400,000 houses for my population group, black, that's why it's black, whilst our population has increased from 35 million to 65 million since 1994. They gotten 1.2 million small businesses closed since that time. They gotten 1.4 million taxpayers, that's white guys, immigrating since 94. 400,000 of these taxpayers who contributed more than 15% of the total personal income tax. They run 22 cities into the ground. They created 480 new municipalities and run them also into the ground. They managed to pollute all our major rivers to the extent that the entire ecosystem is dead. Look at the Hennops River. So dead, there's not any life left at all, except for the bacteria. They've managed to destroy 4 major dams in terms of E. coli levels. They killed the St. Lucia estuary. They bought They bought 3,200 milk farms, of which only 3 are still operating. They bought 8,400 cattle and citrus farms. Only 23 of them are still producing. And that means they deserve all the praise they can get. This is what one black guy says of his own government. And to finish it off, here's a video of a guy, a black guy, who talks about the old times.
Yesterday I was doing the panel show, and I mentioned that apartheid was better than ANC democracy. Note that ANC democracy. And most people who dispute that are people who are not there. And some of the people, they come from the homelands where they were oppressed by their own black people. Someone will tell you that they didn't have electricity, but where were you? Because I can tell you, it was not always rosy, but in the townships which were governed by apartheid administrations, things were better than now. Yes, there was segregation, but if you went into a black hospital, you'll find all the necessities. If you went to a black school, you'll find all those things that you needed to find. Let me break it this way. Education. There were schools, Zama Amber, Artisan, technical colleges, Abo Vista, designated for black people, but it was there. You go to some of the urban, homelands under apartheid, like Abu Natal, you'll find universities of Fort Hare. You go to Soshanguve, Struchelo. There were, facilities, infrastructure. That's why in a township you'll find a qualified plumber, a qualified technician, a qualified electrician, somebody who could fix cars with a certificate, and that person did a proper job, trained for free, mahala, go Nico. We found those things. Art schools, they were everywhere. Go Fuba, Funda Center, every township had a hall. Sports stars were produced at auction, tennis players, cyclists, amakarateka, movie stars up to international level, like Abu Zex Mukai, Ken Camp, Abu Miriam Makeba were produced during apartheid. You go to hospitals, like Baragwanath, General, they produced. There was no shortage of medication. Road infrastructure, they see enjoy today, produced during apartheid. We had our own things, our own humanity, our own churches that we owned, where people are not, robbed, made to kiss snakes. We had our own things, businesses, movie theaters. We had those things. And then people who've never lived under apartheid, they will tell you otherwise. People who lived oppressed by their Bantustan leaders. So what I'm talking about. I know apartheid. I've been inside an apartheid jail. Apartheid had shot, fired bullets at me. I know friends who died during apartheid. Schools were proper. Whatever that white people had, we also had our own, even though it was not at par. Our pools, like about Jake, with 3 townships, maybe they are sharing 1 swimming pool, Olympic size, boxing house, even beer houses, because they need dawa manch. We had those things. We had our own Miss Black South Africa. Everything that white people had, we also had. It was separate development. Today there is none. We had jobs. We had business people. Abantu own a club. Also for song. Every township, go Keith Kunene. Every township, there was, it's Haikun Lakon. People were driving about Jaguar, XJ type, BMW, own a coal mines, not coal mines, coal houses, some warehouses. We had those things, but things are malash. During apartheid. Ojomosono, produced during apartheid, but Alanabopili. Umalombo Dichab, Wakazam Dawum. They were there owning our teams. It was tough, but we had those things. Houses. There were people who were buying houses. There were people who were renting. But they will fix your toilet, your windows, everything. 99-year lease. Which after 99 years, you own the house. There were limitations. But in whatever spaces that we found ourselves, we were thriving. Yes, there were poor people. And you would be arrested for not working. Like in any society. Now, there are poor people everywhere. Everywhere. The only people who are thriving are politicians and Zionist dogs. And then somebody's going to tell me, what is he talking about? We had electricity, Soweto, Orlando. Yes, the rollout maybe was not as fast. But people, the was good was at December. Borders Mandan. Was a Friday. Nobody, Christmas is not every day. We had those things during the era of Exut Makeup, Abu Verade Ghost, every township under apartheid. Remember, we had 4 provinces, Nama Bantustan homelands, and I can tell you, even those Bantustans, like Abu Putatwana, they were better than now. Abu KZN, better than now. Napago Toyando, the so-called puppets, they governed this country better than this ANC democracy. When I'm saying apartheid was better than this ANC democracy, I'm not saying it was good, but it was better. Imagine that. And I'm telling you, I will not lose this debate. Even if losing I were to pay for your life expenses for the rest of my life, I will take that shot. I'm telling you, apartheid was better than ANC democracy. We produced, imported. Today we're buying more from outside. I'm chickens. Obama flooded us with chickens. We're importing toothpicks. We had industries, our textiles. People who were working, were trains. Things that were built during apartheid. Tamalam Bilspana, the Pago Pasaf Baubenza attack. Yes, maybe salary was not that good, but it was there. We were happy. That's why there were few, tiny minority of people who were comrades. Because other people, they were happy. Bafagama bell bottom. We are going to party. I'm a festival. Oh, joy. Glendabo Concord la. I remember. And post 76, it was worse. They created a middle class in the townships. In the townships, people, who could worry about bonds and businesses, maybe not worry much about the struggle. But those people, if you ask them today, are they better now? Go Selection Park, Deep Reef Extension, Soweto. Each and every township, Baba, being a middle class. Infrastructure, I can tell you, department by department, we were happy. Department of Health, Education, it's funded for free. Nurses colleges and training colleges for free. Today, it's chaos, Baba. We've lost everything. And you tell me, Ogoti, the ANC democracy is better than apartheid. Ebafethu, let us be objective. There's a saying, Ogoti, if you belong to a certain school of thought, that should not blind you not to see the importance of other schools. Apartheid guys, everything that they planned, it happened according, to their wishes. Let's say to change, RDP, populates all the time. Nabutabombe, failures, all platforms, economic policies, they don't produce the results, and yet you tell them, or you tell us, these guys are intellectuals. You praise them. Apartheid ministers, they were doctors. That's why they could dribble these guys at Cordes. De Klerk came and says, property right non-negotiable, land non-negotiable, ANC border. There's so many things. Of it, I never talk finish. But I can tell you, everything that you're enjoying, including the Tuli House, where it is, the cities were built during apartheid. The industries, the food that we eat, The companies that are employing us today, about Clicks, for Woolworths, these are apartheid companies. We had people, in fact, Kalamazoo, Abo Ipintombi, Manhattan Brothers, who arts, in other fields, space technology, radio technology. Ebafethu hayi ngizobakutshela manga ngiyakutshela mina ukuthi apartheid, it was not glorious, it was not hallelujah, but it was better than.
Well, the video was a little bit long and so on, but it did say a hell of a lot of things, and I couldn't have said it better. So here you have it out of the mouth of the horse. Is that the saying? In Afrikaans it is, but I'm not sure in English. A horse's mouth, yeah. Get the story from the horse's mouth. And it's actually sad. And it is so bad that even the blacks start to realize it. And then one has to ask your question is democracy always the better option? Because at the end of the day, what did democracy actually help? Nothing. Only what it helped is that an elite group of people got the opportunity by motivating and bamboozling the majority of uninformed, incapable people to vote for them in order to where they believe they will get a better life. But at the end of the day, it was only the small privileged group that got a better life and stole the wealth of the South African nation. So where South Africa once was a flourishing country at the tip of Africa with a bright future in all its glory, that item is gone. And we have become nothing more than another failed state in Africa. Now, an opportunity has arisen with the BRICS countries organization, where South Africa is part of it. And then now the question is, will the ANC be able to grasp that opportunity and make full use of it and bring South Africa back to at least a decent standard of living? A country that you can be at least say, yes, I am from South Africa. That you would say something like that. Unfortunately, I doubt it. I think we are on the hill all the way downwards. There's no turning back. Now we have the option of alternative parties that might come to power with next year's election. The most biggest opposition party is the Democratic Alliance, DA. But unfortunately, they might be okay by managing certain municipality, like in Cape Town, where I live, but there are also a lot of shortcomings and politicized developments in this area. And the foreign policy is something that is totally way out of step with modern views, especially my views as well. But I will make a separate video about that. And then I will explain to you why. So this is the story for today. I hope you know a little bit more about South Africa now. So until next time, cheers.